Hi, and welcome to the 10th stop on the Freedom Trail. This is the site of the Boston Massacre. Now, before I get started, I want to read to you a quote from John Adams. John was the attorney that defended the British soldiers from the events of that night. You know him as our second president and one of our founding fathers. But John says facts are stubborn things. Whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passion, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence. Now I say that because I'm going to give you my favorite version of what happened that night. Yes, there are several versions of what happened that night. As you can imagine, many people were interviewed about the facts of that night, but I doubt any of them were very impartial. So you were either strongly one way or the other. And of course, your biases are going to embellish the stories a little bit. So, well, what was leading up to the event of that night? Well, we know 1760s, the king started imposing all these taxes on us. Well, he needed a way to pay for that war we just had, the French Indian War. They call it the 7 Years' War over in Europe. So he started imposing taxes on us. We have the Stamp Acts, the Intolerable Acts, and the Townshend Acts. I'm sure you remember those from your history book, American history book. The colonists aren't responding to this very well. After all, we don't have any representation here in the colonies, so why should the king be taxing us? Why can't he just leave us alone? So we have some protests, we have riots, we're harassing the British soldiers that are here. We're boycotting British goods, and we're sending a pamphlet out to all the colonies to try to get people to start thinking about a revolution, you know, getting people riled up. So the night of March 5th of 1770, there was a young boy. He was an apprentice to a wig maker. His name was Edward Garrick. And he sees a soldier and he yells out to the soldier and he says, "Hey, you need to pay your bill." And the soldier ignores him because he paid his bill. So he continues walking. So Garrick starts following after him and harassing him. "Pay your bill. You need to pay your bill." And finally, they're kind of in front of the custom house, and there's a guard, Private White, who's keeping guard in front of the custom house. And he yells at the boy and he says, "Hey, you need to be more respectful." Well, Garrick and the soldier that he's chasing after, Goldfinch is his name, they get into an argument and they're yelling at one another. And there is a witness to this that you may know. His name is Henry Knox. He was a 20-year-old bookseller who went on later to become General Knox, and we have Fort Knox named after him. But he was witness to this, and he sees Private White come up to the boy, and he actually hits him with his gun and knocks him down. And so Knox says to the soldier that if you fire, you will die for it, because it looks like the soldier's getting ready to shoot. Well, more people are gathering around, a mob ensues, so somebody sends a runner to Captain Preston, bring more soldiers. Somebody also goes and rings the church bells, which usually only happens if there's a fire. So people are starting to come out because they know there's something happening and more people are growing, and the mob is getting bigger. Captain Preston arrives with 7 soldiers, and the rioters are throwing snowballs, they're throwing things, they're yelling at the British soldiers, they're calling them names, they're trying to provoke them, as you know, mostly on our side is when the bad things are happening. But anyway, one of them hits one of the soldiers and he falls down, and somebody hears somebody say, "Fire, damn you, fire!" And so shooting begins, and Captain never gave orders for anyone to shoot. Next thing we know, there are 3 people dead, several are wounded, and a little bit later, 2 more died. So all in all, 5 people died in the events of that night. Well, somebody who was there named Henry Pelham, he did a drawing of the events of that night. And somehow Paul Revere got a hold of this drawing, and Paul Revere engraves it and prints it and calls it the Bloody Massacre in King Street. Now, Paul Revere stole this because Henry Pelham was going to print it too. He was one of Revere's rivals. But Paul Revere beat him to the punch. And it was propaganda used to stir people up and to get them to, think that this was worse than it really was. And if you look at the picture, you're going to see the soldiers are lined up and they're all shooting, and it looks like Captain Prescott is giving orders for them to shoot. You'll see one man lying on the ground, bloodied, and that was the first person who was killed, and that was Crispus Attucks, who was a black sailor. So that, again, is propaganda. Now, the British soldiers must be charged, so we need an attorney. Well, nobody wants to defend the British soldiers, but finally John Adams agrees to do it. Now, that's a very unpopular thing for him to do. After all, his cousin is Sam Adams, who is the ringleader of the Sons of Liberty. So Adams is able to get the 6 soldiers off, and 2 of them are accused of manslaughter, and they end up branding their thumbs with the letter M. John Adams later wrote that the foundation of independence was laid on March 5th, 1770. Now, if you look into the ground where we're standing, you will see a medallion, and there's 13 circles of stone for 13 colonies and a star in the middle. Well, the medallion is here, but the actual event did not actually take place at this location. It was out in the intersection just a few yards away, but as you can see, it's a busy intersection and we can't actually have a medallion there, so they've moved it just a little bit. Now these, like I said, this was one of the major events that led up to the Revolutionary War, and I hope you learned something, whether it's true or not. No, it's mostly true. And I will catch you on the next stop. Thanks. Bye.